My son keeps on getting into fights. I'm a 42-year-old man and I live with my wife and two kids. My kids are named Emily, 18, and Carl, 18. They are twins. They both attend the same co-ed school. Emily is the more troublesome one. We've been called into school for everything from smoking to fighting. My wife is the stricter parent and I'm the more lenient one. I respect that she handles the kids' discipline. I honestly do not know how to do so. I work at an accounting firm as a senior chartered accountant. My son Carl is the sweetest kid ever. He participates in sports and is academically strong. He has his faults, just as all teenagers have, but he is a good kid. Carl has had a few girlfriends here and there, but they never last. He and I have a normal father-son relationship. The problem started when I was called at work by his school. They told me that he was involved in a fight. I asked if they meant to say Emily instead of Carl, but they said that it was him. Normally, I would have asked my wife to deal with it, but she had been under a lot of stress due to work, and since it was not a busy day, I decided to help her out by dealing with this on my own. I drove to school and got there in a couple of minutes. I got there and found him in the office with the principal. His nose was bleeding and he looked like he had a split lip. He also looked very upset. I had never seen him this upset before in my life. His brow was furrowed and he radiated red-hot anger. "Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for coming at such short notice. The matter is very urgent," the principal said as he shook my hand. "It's not a problem, sir. It was imperative that I come here," I said, glaring at the little rascal sitting next to me. "Very well. I called you here because your son had an altercation with a fellow student," he said. "He started it," Carl said, voice deep and angry. "What happened exactly?" I asked. "He called me names, so I taught him not to mess with me," he said. "What sort of names?" I asked. "It is not important," he said. "It is, if that's the reason why you fought. It is important, because what am I going to tell your mother?" I raised my voice, staring him straight in the eyes. He opened his mouth to say something, but suddenly shut it. He turned away from me and stared at something on the wall. I was deeply surprised by his actions, as this was unlike him. He had been normal all along. "I have no choice but to suspend him for a few days," the principal said, as he signed what I assumed to be the letter of suspension. I took it and the two of us walked to the car. As I drove home, I was fuming. I could expect this from Emily, but Carl was an angel. He would never hurt a fly, yet here we were. I felt like a terrible father. I had been so busy with work that I had not been there for him. Maybe he was being bullied and I had no idea. We arrived home in a few minutes. I called my wife to see if she was busy at work. She told me she was on her way home. She had finished work early on that day. I told her that I needed to speak to her about something important. I told Carl to sit in the living room while we waited for my wife Rosa. I tried to ask him about the fight, but he was very unresponsive. Could see that he was deeply disturbed by something. This scared me, because my family's well-course being is very important to me. Rosa arrived soon enough, and to my surprise, she was not astonished to see him in the condition that he was in. "Again?" she asked him. "Wait, this was a frequent thing?" "What do you mean by again? Has he done this before?" I asked her. "Yes, I do not know what's going on. He's been suspended 3 times for fighting at school. I keep on asking him what the issue is, but he refuses to tell me what's wrong," she sighed, taking my hand. I could see the stress lines on her forehead. I looked at him and I saw that he was looking down. A tear suddenly fell in his lap. Something big was going on and we were going to get to the bottom of this today. "Carl, you need to tell us what's going on. Are you on drugs?" I asked him. "It's not like you were ever around, or you would notice," he said softly. His voice was not malicious in any way, and I was pretty he did not mean to come off as rude. But those words tore at my heart. I had been so busy with work that I had lost track of how my family was doing. I had selfishly let Rosa handle the kids instead of lessening her burden. Something was going on with my son and I didn't even know what it was. "Son, I haven't been there for you and your sister, but we care about you. What is going on? Why have you been getting into fights?" I asked him. "So sorry for snapping. I find it hard to talk about emotional stuff," he said. He came over to sit between us and we embraced him. For a while we sat there in our little cocoon for safety. "I have something to tell you. It's going to be shocking, but I hope that you will still love me the same after I tell you this," he said. "Of course, we will love you the same," Rosa said. "I was involved in a fight because I was called a slur by another student," he said. "What kind of slur?" I asked him. "A homophobic slur," he said. "Oh, my baby, do not mind what people say about you. Please do not get in trouble at school because of people who say hurtful things to you," I said. "It's the thing. I'm gay," he said. To say the least, I was very surprised. In all the years of knowing my son, I had never suspected it. But he was still my son. I did not have a problem with it. "I know, dear," Rosa said, stroking his dark hair. "But how?" he asked. "I'm your mother. I notice things," she said as she hugged him. We stayed like that for a while. We were family, and we would stick together no matter what. He told us more about what had happened later on. Turns out that he had been dating a boy named Jamie secretly for a while. Someone at school had found out and told everyone. No one really cared that much, but there are always going to be homophobic people in life, and we cannot avoid them. He and Jamie had started getting grief for their relationship from a few people. At first they had ignored it, but eventually it got too much, so he decided to fight back. This had led him to getting suspended multiple times. He had not told the principal as he had feared that he would tell us. And he had been frightened for us to find out because he was afraid that we would not accept him. He had told Emily because she was his twin and they shared a bond that no one could explain. We reassured him that we still loved him. I ended up filing complaints against the kids who had been bullying my son at the school. The matter was resolved and the bullying has stopped. My son has started becoming more confident in himself now. He goes out more and is much happier. Just last week we got to have dinner with Jamie and his parents. They're really kind and they treat my son well, which makes me happy. The one thing I learned was to spend more time with my kids and pay more attention to them. I do my best to go out with them and my wife a few times a month. I'm trying to spend more time with them since they will be going to college soon. It's funny how fast they grow. One moment they're learning to walk and the next they're off to college. It is important to cherish those moments we have with them as much as we can. Tomorrow is a gift which is not promised to anyone. The end. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.